Hey, I'm adjusting the camera a little. This is Pammy Joe, and I want to share some information from November 4th, 1998, because I started a journal with God. I didn't mean to, but I was in my journal seeking God elsewhere and asked a question there, just like a prayer. And the answer, I was just writing along and not paying attention, and there was an answer below it. And then I reread it because sometimes I like to reread that day. And I saw these answers and I'm going, wait a minute, I don't know that. Where did that come from? And finally, I'm going, who's here? And he slowly and patiently revealed himself in my journal. He snuck up on me, in other words, because if he hadn't, I would have run. So I asked him some questions. Now, we talked about the origin of the rebellion, of evil, of darkness, and how that came about. I talked about that a few days ago. So what's the origin of, the development or changes that God made in himself? I asked him 4 questions. I may not read all 4 answers. Who was Jesus in your assembly of beings? In other words, that body that came here and embodied God. Who was that? Who are you? Who is Ben? Ben is a spiritual son that was born for me on June 9th, 1998, unexpectedly, after God said he planted a seed in me. And I don't want to dwell on that. I'm just going to tell you who's the Son of Man. Let's put it that way. And who am I? Because he confused me. It's confusing talking to the Almighty because he knows all these things that I don't know. So I was feeling blasphemous, like maybe it wasn't really God I was talking to. I had a fat head. I might be listening to evil. So he said, what are your questions, Rose? He calls me the Rose of Sharon. And I gave him those 4 questions. And he said, all right, then clear your preconceptions, please. And he said, I created a compatible universe into which I inserted humans by putting a spiritual essence, mixing it with physical. Inexperienced, they immediately agreed to help overthrow my power, not knowing the notion is impossible, since me and my power are inseparable. I took a piece of myself, my power, and condensed it to a form to deliver messages to them, calling it the Word. It returns to me when not in use. Are you okay so far? I said yes. I was big-eyed and I said yes. Then he said, I created a pool of essences who would be drawn to me as I feel you are now, enamored by the truth, my main power, which is like the Word and like wisdom. Wisdom pursues the truth, and the truth loves getting caught. Wisdom, I like that. The truth loves getting caught. Yes. Wisdom is manifest via words. So let's say that again. I created a pool of essences who would be drawn to me as I feel you are now, as you are enamored by the truth, my main power, which is like the Word and like wisdom. Wisdom pursues the truth, and the truth loves getting caught. Wisdom is manifested via words. To uncontaminate spiritual mankind from falsehood, false life equals death equals sin, I had to send, I think that answered number 1. No, that answered who are you? That was number 2. To uncontaminate spiritual mankind from falsehood, false life, death equals sin, I had to send a new uncontaminated version of mankind with the word of truth alive inside him to protect him. As I had created male and female, 2 versions or partners of life to separate the waters, life, versions of spirit, globs of essence equals water. So I'd created male and female, 2 versions or partners in life to separate the waters, globs of essences. The first manifestation of mankind of life, a physical tree of life on earth, has all essence in him. A male essence, a male human God, as yet undetached, both globs in one, like unisex, only whole sex merged. He's saying when he came in the flesh, the essence he brought had everything in it. All the versions of mankind's life, Adam and Eve. Then, to be blunt, just before my essence reappears, I arose as a female human glob, corrupted but called, and overcame the temptation to betray and die. She said no to those. Before my essence reappears to save your asses, I arose as a female human glob, corrupted but called, overcame the temptation to betray and die. I wanted to commit suicide. I wouldn't consider it. So Jesus was a man who had God in him day one. 2, I am God. He's talking about himself. I am God, the one in Jesus, the only one. 3, Ben is a rebirth of me via a human female in spiritual form. The glob goes home. I am God, and I am Ben, and I am with you. 4, you are Pam, pure in heart, a female human spirit in the world, but not of the world, as the world is overcome and living on borrowed time. That is heavy stuff. So we talked some more after that. He and I. And he said this. I said, who or what cries inside me and longs for me, and I for him? He is a him. I thought we gave him names. When he put the full essence as he was, as Christ, into me, he split it out, took part of it and put it somewhere else or back to himself and left part of it here. However, that other part that he took somewhere else, which could be huger than I am, he split into fractals and put them in people so that he could call them to himself at the right time. And I believe we're in that right time. I believe we're walking into it. So how do you overcome the evil beings on earth that are trying to destroy mankind? The answer to that is God. God does. We can't. He can. So I said, what is this crying inside of me still? He said, we are together and one as we were before, but the circumstances are almost perfectly reversed. He was one with his son. He is one with me, but it's a different circumstance. I am not sinless or perfect or anything. I'm the same as you. He's doing the same thing to you that he did to me. The time is coming, you will leave me all alone, yet I am not alone, for the Father is with me. Jesus said that. Mankind walked off. They all left. In the garden, his disciples fell asleep. They wouldn't stay with him. And when they took him off to crucify him, they all hid because they didn't want to be associated with him. The time is coming, you will leave me all alone, yet I am not alone, for the Father is with me. I'm that way too. It's the way we're designed to be. You are too. No matter who criticizes us and irritates us, the Father stays with us. So, God and I, 20 years ago, were trapped together, but his words, we are trapped together by the need to fulfill all things. I rejoice at being with you. I cry at being stuffed into your body and not able to grab you myself, and you cry the same way. These people should know I said, I and the Father are one. I have loved you as he loves me. I return to the Father. If the Father chooses to reappear secretly as in you, why not? I told you they're almost opposites. Let's see, what is he talking about there? You are one of the essences of God. You and the Father are one. So he's saying that single appearance is not the only appearance. It was an example or the first version of God merging with mankind. Not that a man becomes God, but that God marries us and lives in us and opens that communication so that our blobs, instead of this separation and this rebellion, that's what Messiah's work did is he closed that gap. There was a big curtain in the temple, and it was coming between us so that he would fry us if he touched us, because we were burdened with our guilt and our sin. He compensated for that incompatibility and made it possible for us to merge with him again as originally intended, walk with him in the garden face to face without hiding or getting killed by his essence. That's the best way I can describe it. God was experimenting on me, and I would have to say, based on what I'm seeing on earth with others, it worked. I'm not saying I'm the only one either. No, nobody is. What matters is that God is God, but he does mention a hierarchy or generations here of life on earth. It's just stuff out of my journal. You can't read it because it's backwards. And he's showing like a family tree, saying these are categories and classifications and families. One isn't better. It's just like if you looked at Ancestry.com at your background, he has all this planned out. We're all blocks in a pyramid or pieces of a staircase, or however you want to look at it. God has it all figured out. Every single person is unique. So I wanted you to know, though, that we can talk all we want about evil, but if you start focusing on what God is, it is amazing. That by itself will chase evil off. Evil won't have an audience. You know those obnoxious commercials on television? If no one watched them and they sold nothing, they'd dry up and they would turn into something positive and helpful. This product can help you without screaming at us and getting our attention and all that. It would just be simply an offer to help in exchange for compensation for what it costs them to make it and have a profit. I created a compatible universe into which I inserted humans. He made the universe compatible for humans before he put us in it by putting a spiritual essence and mixing it with the physical. Inexperienced at living, they immediately agreed to help overthrow my power. And knowing the notion is impossible, since my power and I are inseparable. So then I took a piece of myself, my power, condensed it into a form to deliver messages to them, calling it the Word. It returns to me when not in use. He made the Word flesh without sin, sent him here, him being the entire human existence, merged with us, and then went back, created a new temple with the resurrection that's imperishable. And one word that's key in the word imperishable, all of these Christians are sitting around waiting to be made so they can't get sick. What's important about the imperishable thing is that you don't want to sin. You don't want to rebel anymore and become imperishable because you love God. It's not because you're told not to eat of a fruit. It's because you care so much about him and you acknowledge how he really is that you don't want to step outside that zone because you missed something. If you did, you see the disadvantage to rebellion. You see that you've been dark and you don't like it, so you're not going to do it. It's a choice, but it's a choice made between you and God instead of you and interference. Now, the first beings that he differentiated into, or however you want to call it, the Eternals, the ones that hadn't been flesh yet, they made a choice too. And it was a stupid choice, as we know. And they run around sucking everyone else dry, which does no good because God can replenish everyone else who turns to him. So that whole activity of hopelessness and evil is just a spinning wheel that's going nowhere. As soon as you still have to show faith in God. You can't just become sinless. It's through faith. So I have to mention Paul the Apostle. The apostles, the 11 who deserted Jesus in the garden anyway and denied him, were trying to go back to legalism, to the law, which is a slave master. It will make you into a slave, just like Satan wanted to. You can do this, but you can't do that. It has its place because it shows us God's morals. So it's important for that standpoint. I believe in the 10 Commandments being posted everywhere so that we can look continually and remind ourselves of God's morals. But we can't perfectly enact them. What we can do is through faith, acknowledging, yes, you are God. Yes, I need you. I need you because I want you, not because I have to have you to keep out of trouble. No, I want you because I know you're the source of wisdom and the source of truth. I want the truth. Paul came to say, I used to be a legalist. Now, God appeared to me in Jesus's form and voice after he was a new creature, a new creation, an example of what we will be. He came back and he knocked me on my ass and made me blind so that I could see that what I saw before was not the answer. The second covenant of faith is what you need to live by. And that's what Paul was trying to teach hard-headed, stubborn people similar to the Israelites who wanted to say slaves in Egypt. Humanity wants to be a slave. They don't want to go to the work to know the Almighty. Paul was trying to beat it into their heads. That's why there's so many letters and there's so much lecturing. He's trying to get it into their heads. He was called to replace Judas, who betrayed Christ. The last thing about Judas, though, 30 pieces of silver. Not sure what it's worth now. Back then, it might have been worth $1 million for all I know. He took a bribe. He thought they would just banish Jesus or something. He didn't realize they were going to kill him. When he found out what was going to happen to Jesus, he hung himself. But before he hung himself, he threw the money down. A lot of people berate him. I don't know. I'm not his judge. But he threw down the thing that he treasured more than God and killed himself. Okay, let God be his judge, not us. They took that silver and they bought Potter's Field with it. Potter's Field is where the broken, imperfect pots got thrown. The ones that weren't usable, they got busted up and thrown in a field where they were no good for anything. His blood redeemed those flawed pots, and the potter can make something out of them. He can reheat them and recycle and resurrect them and make a new implement out of them. So his blood also purchased the hopeless, those who aren't good enough, those who have no idea how to obey the law. His gentle hands can mold even the most hopeless person and make a new creation out of them, because he is God. He's Mr. Everything. He can do anything. And he is Mr. Everything to me. Bye and thanks.